Sometimes the night carries you when the world feels too heavy. You don't know exactly where you're going. You don't even remember what street you're on, but then headlights find you. A door opens, a stranger nods, and for reasons you don't yet understand, you step inside. Not into a destination, but into a silence that feels safe. This isn't a love story that lasts forever. It's something quieter, something real. Just one night, one cab, one man whose presence felt like a pause in the chaos. This is what happened in the space between stoplights and sunrise. When I let a stranger become home for a little while, it was just past midnight when you stepped outside, your heels pressing softly against the pavement slick with leftover rain. The city was winding down, exhaling its final sighs of motion streets, still glowing but quiet now, like a song that had finished playing that still lingered in the air. You weren't thinking about anything except getting home. Your body was, tired in that gentle, post-laughter way, the kind of tired that comes after too much music, too many smiling faces, and not enough time to yourself. Your eyes scanned the curb until the soft gold glow of headlights curved around the corner and washed over your legs like a silent greeting. The taxi slowed, brake lights blooming like petals in the mist. You didn't hesitate. Just opened the door and stepped into the warmth of the cabin wrapped around you instantly. A hush of heat and quiet jazz filled the space. There was the faint scent of something familiar, leather, pine, and the trace of cologne that had lived in the fabric of the seats longer than the man behind the wheel had. You sank into the back seat, letting your shoulders relax, your breath slowing without permission. Then you heard his voice. Just a low murmur of your name from the app to confirm. It shouldn't have meant anything, but the way he said it made. You look up. You met his eyes in the rearview mirror. They were steady, dark, not cold. Just calm, as if they didn't need to impress or perform. They didn't flicker away like most did. They held you gently, not lingering too long, but long enough to remind you that you were being seen. You nodded. Yes, you whispered. He didn't ask how your night was. He didn't talk at all. Just turned back toward the road and began to drive. And somehow that silence felt like a kindness. The car moved through the streets like it belonged to the night. The rain had softened to mist, and droplets curved across the window beside you in slow, uncertain lines. You leaned your head against the glass, not to sleep, but to listen to the music, to the quiet, to the way your thoughts rearranged themselves in the presence of his silence. There was something about the way he drove. Not fast, not sluggish. Just present. Like each stoplight was a decision and every turn a gentle offering. Your gaze drifted to the back of his neck, soft curls at the edge of his collar, the slow movement of his arm as he steered with one hand. He had that stillness to him, the kind you recognize only when your own chaos starts to settle. You weren't looking for a connection. You weren't trying to be noticed. But in that quiet little cabin rolling through the sleepy veins of the city, you started to feel like you'd been invited into something quieter than fate. At the red light on 12th and Park, he turned the music down slightly. Still didn't speak. Just let the saxophone fade into the background while the hush returned. You felt it then, that feeling that maybe the night wasn't over. That maybe it had just paused to let you step into it more slowly. You shifted in your seat, pressing your palm to your thigh, grounding yourself in your own skin. Your reflection in the window looked softer than it had earlier, less ready, more open. The cab's lights curled across your cheekbones like moonlight. When he glanced back in the mirror again, your eyes met his once more. You smiled, not because you had anything to say, but because something inside you had just begun to quiet. And it felt like maybe he had something to do with that. He smiled too, just a little. Crescent of warmth that didn't need language. And in that simple exchange, just two strangers moving through a city in a box of warmth and stillness, you felt it begin. Not love, not even lust thought, just presence. A soft thread pulled tight between you. Humming with something you didn't need to name. The ride continued, but nothing was quite the same. The hum of the engine is the only sound now, purring steadily beneath your feet as the taxi glides down near empty roads, weaving through pools of rainlight like a thought drifting slowly through memory. You sit with your hands in your lap, your fingers slightly curled, not quite still, not quite fidgeting, just moving with the restlessness of someone whose mind hasn't caught up to their body yet. You aren't used to silence like this, not with someone you don't know, not in a shared space where the air could so easily be filled with small talk, or apologies, or noise meant to cover up discomfort. But here, in this car with this man, you know only as the name on a screen, the silence isn't covering anything. It's holding everything. He doesn't speak, and neither do you. Yet the absence of words between you doesn't press like a weight. It drapes softly like a blanket you didn't know you needed. The cab's interior is dim, lit only by the faded gold of street lamps passing overhead. Their glow flashes across the dashboard, over your thighs, brushes against his cheek in short flickers. The light turns his jawline into sculpture, but it's the stillness in his eyes that holds you more than anything. Calm, focused, not glancing back, unnecessarily just present. Entirely here, entirely now. You realize how rare that is thought to be near someone and not feel like you're being measured or assessed or waited on for a reply. He's not performing politeness. He's not trying to make you laugh. He's just driving. And in doing so, he's giving you more space than most people ever do. Even in rooms with open windows and unlocked doors, you glance sideways at his silhouette. His hands rest gently on the wheel, relaxed, like they trust the road to carry you both. You notice how long his fingers are, how his wrists turn smoothly with each gentle curve of the avenue. His shoulders roll slowly as he shifts in his seat, and even that small movement feels deliberate, not calculated. Just mindful. You can tell he knows how to take up space without demanding it. And maybe that's what draws you in. The way he doesn't try to fill the air. The way he lets silence speak for itself. You sink back a little deeper into your seat. Your breath evens out. The tension in your neck eases in increments. You hadn't realized how much noise your day had left. Inside your body. Laughter from earlier, too loud and too bright. People asking questions you didn't want to answer. Music thumping through your chest, drinks clinking, someone brushing your arm without asking. It was all fine fun, even but now, in this soft capsule of quiet. You feel it melting off you like a coat finally removed after too long in the heat. You press your fingers to the window. The glass is cool, and tiny drops of water smear beneath your touch. Outside, the city is glowing in patches street lamps pouring over benches, puddles catching the shimmer of distant taillights. You watch it pass as if from underwater. Everything, blurred and golden and slow, and still he doesn't speak. You wonder for a moment if he's shy, if he's tired, if he simply prefers to drive in silence. But none of those guesses feel quite right. because the silence isn't accidental, it feels intentional. Like he knows how to create space where other people rush to fill it. Like he understands that not all moments need sound to be meaningful. Your eyes drift to the mirror again. For a few breaths, he's looking there too. Your gaze meets his, and this time it holds just a beat longer than before. You see something in his expression and awareness, maybe, or maybe just a quiet echo of your own, something gentle. Something settled Dot, and then something shifts, not in him, not in the car, not outside Dot in you. A thought comes, not fully formed, but round and quiet. This feels safe, not the kind of safety that's loud and obvious. Not the kind you get from locks or well-lit buildings, but the kind that settles in your bones and lets you breathe all the way out. You didn't know you've been waiting for it. The silence deepens, but instead of making you feel alone, it begins to do something else. It begins to hold you. Like it's cradling your thoughts, not judging them. Like it's giving you permission to stop narrating your existence, to just be. You close your eyes, you don't fall asleep, you don't drift off, you just rest. Not because you're exhausted, but because for the first time in days, maybe longer, you don't feel like you have to protect anything. And he says nothing. He just drives. His presence doesn't lean into yours, doesn't push or pull. He lets you be near him without needing anything from you. And somehow, that feels more intimate than touch. You begin to wonder what kind of life he lives, what kind of music he listens to when the car is empty. If he always drives this late, if he likes watching the city sleep. You wonder if he's someone who loves deeply or holds himself back. If there's someone who waits for him, if there used to be, and then, as if catching the shape of your thoughts, he reaches forward and turns the music back up just slightly. The same slow jazz hums into the cabin, filling the space like warm breath against skin. The piano is soft, the saxophone low and mournful in a beautiful way. You glance at the back of his head. He hasn't turned around. He hasn't looked to check if you approve. He's just playing music again, like he remembered that quiet doesn't have to be empty. It can be filled gently. You whisper, not sure why. I like this. He nods. That's it, not just a nod. But in that nod, you feel understood. He doesn't ask what you like about it. He doesn't press for more. He simply gives a small gesture that says, I hear you. I'm glad, and somehow it's enough. You feel seen, not deeply, not completely, but in a way that doesn't ask you to explain yourself. You let the song carry you for a while. The streets outside grow quieter. Fewer cars, more shadows. The occasional figure walking beneath an umbrella. There, world passing in a flash. But in here, time moves differently. You realize the silence is the kind that doesn't require effort. It doesn't need you to fix it, or decorate it, or make it entertaining. It allows you to fall into it without falling apart. And for the first time tonight, maybe for the first time in weeks, you feel like yourself. Not the version of you that smiles when she's tired. Not the version that nods through conversations she doesn't care for, but the quiet version, the true version. The one that breathes slowly and watches the world from behind her eyes instead of performing in front of them. And he gives you that without asking, without knowing. Just by being, you glance up again. The rear view mirror catches you both this time. His eyes flick to yours. This time. He doesn't look away. And neither do you. There's no smile. Just stillness. Just knowing. just something unspoken that rests gently between two people who don't need to fill the space with sound to prove they are here. And in that stillness, you feel it deepen again, the silence that doesn't feel empty. The silence that feels strangely like home. You don't notice the moment the song ends. It fades so seamlessly into the quiet that it feels like silence was always waiting just beneath the melody. There's still the soft hum of the engine, the tireless rhythm of wheels against wet asphalt. But the music, that subtle saxophone that had cradled your thoughts, has stopped. And now the silence blooms again, familiar and deep, no longer surprising. It's not the kind of silence that asks questions. It's the kind that listens. It's the kind that lingers. He reaches for the volume knob again, slowly this time, turning it down until the radio clicks off with a soft, barely there sound. And then, for the first time since you got in the car, he speaks. You okay back there? His voice is low, not rough, not smooth, just quiet. Like it's been waiting inside him this whole time, like it knows not to startle anything that has settled. You look up, not startled, just curious. The mirror catches your face first, then his. Eyes. They're not probing. They're not even especially warm. They're just there, present. A touch of genuine awareness behind the calm. You nod. Yeah, I'm okay. He doesn't follow up with another question. Doesn't laugh or nod like he expected a different answer. He just accepts it. Like your presence is enough. Like your answer isn't something to unpack or analyze, just a simple truth for this quiet night. He takes a slow breath, eyes on the road, then glances back at you again, this time not through the mirror, but over his shoulder. The car is stopped at a red light, and there's no one behind you. Just wet pavement glowing under the traffic light. If you're tired, we can pull over somewhere. No rush. The offer is unexpected. It's not about the fare. It's not about flirtation. It's not even about him. It's about you. A gesture placed gently between you, without expectation. You blink. For a second, you think of the street outside your building, of going home, turning on the lights, brushing your teeth, climbing into a bed that suddenly feels too big, too bright, too filled with things to do tomorrow. You think of the quietness of your apartment, which isn't this kind of quiet, not warm, not shared, double quotes, actually. You begin, your voice softer than you meant. I wouldn't mind not going home just yet. He nods once, not surprised, not excited, just steady. All right, the light turns green. He doesn't move. He shifts in his seat slightly, turns the wheel, and guides the car away from the main road. Down a side street, then another. The city begins to soften around you. Fewer signs, fewer horns, fewer windows full of light. Just you, him, the car, and the night. When he speaks again, it's even softer. There's a spot I like. You okay with quiet places? You nod, your throat catching for a second on how gently he asks. Like he's not just asking about your comfort, he's asking about your whole self. Yes, quiet sounds good. He takes another turn, and the road narrows. You pass a park, then an old church, then a little row of houses with yellow porch lights. Everything feels slow here, like the world has tucked itself in. Finally, he pulls into a narrow lane, then eases the car up against a low stone wall. Beyond it, trees, a small hill, and above it, the sky not entirely clear, but open enough that stars blink through in patches. He shifts into park. The engine hums. Then quiets. For a moment, neither of you speaks. You just sit in the hush. The windshield is fogging slightly. The windows cradle reflections of the trees. It doesn't feel like a car anymore. It feels like a room. A room made of shadows and quiet and unasked questions. He turns slightly in his seat, looks back at you fully now, and you look back. Not because you're trying to figure him out. Not because you're waiting for something to happen, but because you want to. Because the space between you is suddenly electric with softness. He rests, his arm across the back of the passenger seat, head tilted slightly. You mirror him without meaning to. Your shoulder tilts, your breath slows. And there it is again, that sense that this moment was always going to happen, not fate, not destiny. Just two people whose timing finally aligned. He doesn't reach for you. He waits, and you move first. You shift forward toward the front seat, your hand curling gently around the edge of his. His palm opens without resistance, warm, familiar, like you've touched it before in a dream. No words, just eyes, just breath, just silence that doesn't ask for more. Then slowly, like a tide coming in, he leans forward, your foreheads brush. Then only then your lips meet. No fire, no performance. Just the quiet beginning of something that doesn't need to be named. Just you and him, and this night, unfolding like the softest secret. He doesn't start the car right away. After the kiss, a kiss that felt like a tide reaching the shore with no hurry to pull back, he lets the moment linger. He stays close, but not too close, giving you room. You rest your forehead against his for a quiet second, your breath mingling. Your eyes close not from shyness, but because the moment feels too whole to interrupt with anything as sharp as sight. You're not sure how long you stay like that. Seconds? A minute? Maybe more. It doesn't matter. The car's warm. The air between you even warmer. The kind of warmth that seeps under your ribs and tells your body it doesn't need to be anywhere else. Eventually, he leans back gently, slowly, and settles into his seat again. You do the same, still facing slightly toward him, one leg folded beneath the other, your hand resting on your knee. You don't speak. He doesn't either. You both just sit there, and that soft, echoing pause after closeness where silence isn't empty but full, like a sky holding its breath between constellations. Then, without a word, he starts the engine again. The hum is smooth, low, unintrusive. He checks the mirrors with quiet precision, puts the car into gear, and pulls back onto the road as if it's the most natural thing in the world. You feel it then, not rejection, not hesitation, but continuation. He isn't leaving the moment behind. He's carrying it forward. And so are you. You both drive and don't say a thing. There's a kind of quiet between two people that speaks louder than conversation ever could. It isn't awkward. It doesn't itch or stretch. It simply is. That's the quiet you fall into. Now, you sit in the back seat again, though not because you've retreated. You sit there like a reader watching the next page of the story unfold from a safe, curious place. Your head leans gently against the window. The cool glass soothes your temple, and through it, the night unfurls in slow, gleaming ribbons of wet pavement and distant light. The city has gone hushed, wrapped in a post-midnight stillness that feels like a shared secret. Neon signs blink lazily. Streetlights sway faintly in the breeze. The rain has stopped but left its fingerprint everywhere. The world seems reflective now, softened by water and waiting. You wonder if he has a route in mind, or if he's just letting the night carry him. It doesn't seem to matter. The roads curve like memory, and he drives as if each turn was always meant to happen. Your gaze drifts to the back of his neck again, the subtle bend where his shoulder meets his spine. There's something almost reverent in the way he moves, like he respects the act of driving, of guiding someone, even if it's just through silence. You realize how rare that is, too. Most people fill the air with noise, commentary, nervous questions. He lets the space stretch without needing to prove anything. And in doing so, he invites you to rest. Your eyes close for a moment, not sleep, just surrender. A pause, a breath. The rhythm of the car, the rise and fall of its movement, begins to feel like breathing itself. In, out, slow, sure. Present dot in that stillness, memory surface, not sharp ones, not painful, just the soft kind. You think about times you tried, too hard to be interesting, times you laughed too loudly to fill silences that weren't yours to fix, times you kept talking when all you wanted was to be held. But here, in this car, in this moment, there's nothing to fix. There's no performance required. Just this unfolding quiet, shared, and sacred. You glance at the dashboard, no destination entered, no map blinking. He's driving without an end point. You smile. Maybe that's what makes this night feel so gentle, its directionless grace. No goal, no arrival, just the movement itself. A motion without pressure. A presence without need. You shift slightly, pulling your coat tighter around. Your arms. He notices just barely. You see his hand reach toward the climate dial, turn the heat up by one small notch. Still no words. Just awareness. Just care made visible in the quietest way. You exhale. And it feels like gratitude. He pulls into a street, lined with trees, the kind that arch over the road like cathedral beams. The leaves are dark and wet, the pavement glistening with reflected stars. For a moment, the headlights create a tunnel of golden hush, and it feels like you're passing through something older than time, like the world. Pause to let you both through. Still no words, still no need. You glance at him again, and in the faint amber of the dashboard, you see his profile peaceful, thoughtful, untouched by hurry. He's not wondering what happens next. He's not measuring the minutes. He's simply with you. You realize something then. The absence of conversation has become its own kind of language. Every quiet gesture, every subtle glance, every turn of the wheel, it all says something. It says, I see you. It says, you don't need to explain. It says, stay. And so you do. You stay in the moment. You stay in the softness. You stay in the car with a stranger who no longer feels strange. Eventually, he turns down another narrow street. A mural flashes past a woman painted in deep blues, her eyes full of stars, then a row of shuttered bookstores. A quiet diner with its neon coffee cup blinking sleepily. All of it feels dreamlike now, as if you're inside a story that doesn't need telling, only living. Finally, he slows the car, pulling up alongside a quiet overlook. Beyond the railings, the city spreads out in a hush of light and water. You can see the river winding silver through the buildings, and bridges lit like necklaces across its spine. The skyline breathes out its slow electric glow. He parks, and again says nothing. You don't ask where you are. You don't ask what now. You simply look at the city and feel your heart settle. After a long moment, he leans slightly toward you, not close enough to touch, just enough to share the view. It's beautiful, you say softly. He nods, and then finally he speaks. Yeah, but I think tonight you are more. You don't respond out, not with words. You let his voice settle in your chest, like a stone placed gently at the center of your stillness. And for a moment, you forget all the other nights that ended with questions, with tension, with a need to define. This night doesn't ask for answers. It offers presence instead. You turn toward him, not because you need more, but because you want to share the silence again, closer this time. In the soft, breathing dark, you lean toward the front seat once. More. Your fingers find his hand again, and this time they linger. You sit there, side by side, no longer strangers, not quite lovers, held together by something even quieter than touch, and the car doesn't move, and the city doesn't ask Dot, and the silence, still vast and deep, speaks louder than ever. You don't remember the exact second you knew you didn't want to go home. It doesn't arrive as a thunderbolt or a sudden cinematic revelation. It creeps in quietly, the way warmth finds your fingertips after you've been out in the cold too long. You realize it slowly, in the stillness between the turns, in the soft hum of the car as it glides along unfamiliar streets. You realize it when the thought of your apartment, its empty light switches, its untouched dishes, the silence that doesn't breathe like this silence does feels. Less like sanctuary and more like exile. You're not afraid of being alone. You've spent plenty of nights in your own company, drawn baths in silence, read under blankets, stared at your ceiling while the city whispered beyond the windows. But tonight is different. Tonight your solitude doesn't feel sacred, it feels stark. And next to this quiet companionship, this living warmth of someone who sees you without staring, your own bed feels far too cold. He hasn't asked for anything, hasn't even gestured toward the end of the ride. He's just driving, letting the night hold both of you. Every so often he glances at you, not checking, not searching, just looking, like someone admiring a flame from a respectful distance. You wonder if he feels it too, the heaviness of returning to separate worlds after floating together so gently in this shared one. And maybe that's what makes you say it, not from need, not from loneliness, not from presence. Can we keep driving? A little longer? Your voice is barely above a whisper, but it parts the silence with the gentleness of a door opening. His eyes flick to yours in the rearview mirror. For a breath, neither of you moves. Then he nods. Not eagerly, not reluctantly. Just as if he'd already been waiting for you to say the words. Sure, he says. Where to? You look out the window. The city has started to yawn, its lights dimmer now, its streets pulling back their edges like bed sheets. You don't have an answer. That's the thing about nights like this. They don't need destinations. Anywhere. You say nowhere. He smiles faintly. It curls gently at the corners of his mouth, like the moon rising without fanfare. All right, he replies, and the car moves forward again. You watch the world pass by in gradients of gold and gray. It feels like floating, like you're in the pocket of something timeless. The signs and traffic lights blur, not because of speed, but because your mind is somewhere else entirely. You start to imagine what he looked like as a boy, what his laugh sounds like in daylight, whether he believes in fate or just in good timing, but you don't ask. Tonight is not for collecting facts. Tonight is for sensing what exists without. Being explained out as the minutes stretch, you lean forward, your hand resting lightly on the shoulder of the front seat. He doesn't flinch, doesn't comment. He just adjusts his posture slightly so you fit more comfortably into the space between you, The city fades into quieter corners, empty parking lots, closed storefronts, rows of houses asleep behind drawn curtains. The glow of sodium street lamps bathes everything in honey and shadow. You don't know how long you drive. Time has softened completely now, like fruit in warm hands. Eventually, he speaks. Want me to stop somewhere? You think for a moment, then say, just keep driving. And he does dot no questions, no rules, no clock ticking loudly in the background, dot just the road. Just. You dot just him, and the soft suspension in the space between what was and what might be. Somewhere, eventually, you pull over, but not because the ride is ending, because the car has become, still again, a kind of pause that asks nothing. You shift forward, resting your arms gently over the back of the passenger seat. The leather is warm from his shoulder. I don't want to be alone yet. You say, Dad, it isn't a confession. It's not even a request. It's a truth, spoken quietly, offered without shame. He doesn't answer right away. He looks at you, then past you through the windshield. The street outside is empty. A single cat crosses the road, slow and sure. The city breathes around you like it knows. Then he reaches across the seat, not quickly, not with assumption dot, just a hand dot open dot waiting dot you take it, and the night continues dot it. Happens quietly, not as a grand gesture, not as a romantic cliche, but in a moment so simple it might have gone unnoticed if your heart hadn't already been listening so closely. You're both sitting in the car, parked beneath a flickering street lamp. The world outside has turned syrupy with sleep-deep shadows folding over rooftops, shutters drawn, sidewalks glossy with night. You've been riding together for what feels like hours, though time has long since slipped out the passenger door and wandered off into the dark. You lean forward, elbows on your knees, chin in your palm, watching your breath fog gently against the window. You feel it before you see it, the slow rustle of fabric, the subtle shift in the air beside you. Then, without a word, he reaches back, not looking at you, not asking first. He just slides one arm out of his jacket, then the other, and extends it behind him. It's heavy, warm, worn in a way that feels lived in, not neglected. He doesn't drape it over you, doesn't tuck it in. He just offers it, palm up, jacket folded, waiting dot, and you take it. You don't speak. You don't thank him. You simply slip your arms through the sleeves and pull it around you. The inside is soft, lined with something that feels like fleece and memory. It smells faintly of cedar, of clean cotton, of the kind, of cologne that doesn't announce itself, but stays on the skin long after a person leaves. You pull it tighter around yourself, and then it hits. You dot this is the first thing all day, maybe all week, that has felt like home, not the apartment with your candles and framed photos and curated playlists, dot not the bar earlier with its neon lights and laughter, and drinks you didn't really want, not even the silence of your bedroom, so often mistaken for peace, dot, but this jacket handed to you by a man whose name you still only half remember. This car seat worn in all the right places. This strange hour when no one is looking and the world feels like it belongs to those who dare to stay. Awake inside it. You don't cry, but you could. Not from sadness, dot from recognition, dot. You turn your head slightly, looking at him in profile. His face is calm, not searching, not checking for your reaction. He's staring out at the road ahead, one hand resting lightly on the wheel, the other now on his lap. He's not waiting for gratitude. He's not trying to impress you. He just noticed you were cold and did something about it. You don't say anything right away. You just let the moment hold. Let the jacket mold to your shape. Let the idea settle in your chest that someone thought about your comfort before you. Had to ask Dot you can't remember the last time that happened. Minutes pass. Maybe more Dot you close your eyes, sinking deeper into the seat, letting the jacket's warmth trace its way across your shoulders, your arms, your ribs. You breathe in deeply and it smells like protection, like someone's arms in a storm. Like safety you didn't have to earn. He speaks then, voice low. Better? You open your eyes and nod, a small smile curling your lips. Yeah, thank you. He doesn't nod back. Doesn't say, you're welcome. He just looks over at you once, briefly, and then turns his gaze back to the road ahead. The city stretched out quietly before you both. The car idles for a while longer. Then, with a soft tap of the gas, he pulls out again. No destination. Just the motion of two people moving together through the belly of the night. You wonder what it is about him that feels different. It's not just the silence. It's not just the way he drives. It's something deeper, an attentiveness so gentle it doesn't announce itself. A kind of knowing. As if he sees the versions of you that don't show up in photos or on dates. Or during polite conversation, the tired version. The quiet one. The you that doesn't always have the words. You feel like that version is the one he offered his jacket to. And that feels like the beginning of something. The streets begin to narrow. Buildings giving way to long, empty stretches of quiet road. The sky overhead has cleared slightly, letting a few stars push through. He rolls the window down just a crack, enough to let the cool air thread its way into the car. It dances along your skin and curls around your ankles. But inside his jacket, you stay warm, wrapped, held without being touched. Eventually, he pulls into an overlook. The same one as before. The city sprawls below you again, lights flickering like distant embers, the river winding silver through its center. This time, you move without hesitation. You slide forward, climbing gently into the front seat. The space between you disappears like it had only ever been temporary. He glances sideways, not surprised, not expectant, just present. His arm rests casually on the window, and your leg brushes his. Still no words, but everything between you feels louder. Now, not in a disruptive way, in a clearer way, as if silence has ripened into something ripe and golden and ready to be tasted. You keep the jacket on, even in the warmth of the front seat, even though your body has stopped shivering because it's no longer about temperature. It's about how it makes you feel. Protected, not possessed. Seen, not studied. Safe, not small. He turns the radio on again, but this time not jazz. It's something else, something slower, simpler. A woman's voice, low and tender, singing about how the night can stretch into forever if you let it. You lean your head back against the headrest and close your eyes, letting the music pour gently into you like warm water. You feel the car breathing around you. Feel his stillness beside you. Feel the jacket, heavy and real, wrapped around a version of yourself you didn't know was waiting to be warmed. Eventually, you speak. Not to break the silence, but to share it. This is the kind of night I didn't know I needed. Your voice is soft, not heavy. He doesn't ask you to explain. He just replies, yeah. And in that, yeah, you hear everything he's not saying, everything he doesn't need to, everything that lingers between two people who found each other just long enough to feel known. And so you stay wrapped in his jacket, wrapped in this night, wrapped in a version of yourself that finally feels like it can rest. You begin to notice them slowly, his hands. Not because they move often, not because they demand attention, but because they don't. They rest quietly, purposefully. When they move, it's with the kind of ease that draws no spotlight, yet something in you watches them, as if they're telling a story even his mouth hasn't dared to share. At first. They're just hands on the steering wheel, tapping lightly to the rhythm of a song neither of you has named. One rests on the window frame, fingers slightly curled, knuckles catching the glow of distant streetlights. They look capable, but not hard. Not the hands of a man who's forgotten tenderness. These are hands that listen, hands that wait, hands that offer stillness rather than ask for permission. You find yourself watching them the way someone watches flame, not for danger, but for warmth. Not because you expect them to reach for you, but because you know that if they ever did, they would do so without intrusion, with reverence. Like they understand what it means to be granted access, not given it automatically. Earlier, when he handed you his jacket, you noticed the curve of his thumb, the gentle way it didn't brush your hand on purpose, and yet made its presence felt. You remember the heat of it, the quiet invitation held in its stillness. It didn't ask you to lean in, didn't pull you forward. It simply opened. You wonder if anyone has ever told him how much his hands say. He shifts gears. Now, not roughly, not carelessly. The move is smooth, almost silent, and your eyes follow the motion. You don't mean to stare, but there's something about the way he moves that draws you, a kind of poetry without words, a language only the body knows, spoken without sound. Remember moments earlier in the night, the way he tapped the radio dial with 2 fingers, slow and precise. The way he turned the heater knob just slightly when he saw you rub your arms. The way he reached back without looking to offer you that jacket, like a thought arriving before it was spoken. Every time he moved, he said something. You matter. I see you. There's no rush. He's still driving, but you've stopped paying attention to where. The world is a blur of quiet buildings and tired windows, the kind that blink their last lights before sleep. It's the hour when people forget their masks and the streets begin to speak in whispers. You rest your hand lightly on the center console, not reaching, just placing it there, just a shared surface, no expectations. He doesn't move his hand to meet yours. He doesn't make a gesture, but he adjusts it slightly so that your fingers are only inches apart, and he lets them stay there, not touching, not brushing, but present, as if the space between your hands matters, as if it has weight, meaning. And that is its own kind of intimacy. Not everything has to touch to connect. Sometimes the nearness of something kind is enough to change your breath. Sometimes hands don't need to close around yours to be felt. He flexes his fingers once, then lets them settle again. You wonder what those hands have done in their lifetime, what they've held, what they've let go of, whether they've ever broken something on accident, whether they've learned how to be careful. Your own hands are still now. You keep them close, not because you're afraid to move, but because you're savoring the stillness, the shared awareness, the way silence has become a third presence. In the car, not heavy, not vacant, just real. He takes another turn, and you realize you're near a park. A wide open space, barely lit, with long paths and empty benches. The moon hangs low now, casting silver nets over the tree branches. He pulls into a quiet spot, far from the street, parks the car, turns off the engine. The music stops with it dot, and then for a long time, neither of you says anything. You sit there, wrapped in his jacket, your legs curled beneath you, his hands resting on his knees. You think about all the moments that led you here, not dramatic ones, not loud ones, but the small, patient choices that brought you into the orbit of a man who knew how to make space instead of take it. He doesn't reach for you. You're starting to understand that's part of his language. He doesn't move until you do. You shift slightly, leaning forward, placing your hand softly over his dot. It's warm. Not surprising, not hesitant, just there. He doesn't close his hand over yours right away. He lets it happen. He lets you choose. And when he finally does turn his palm upward, fingers curling loosely around yours, the touch is so light it feels like breath. You look at his face. He's watching your hand. Not hungrily, not possessively, just quietly. As if your hand in his is something precious he hasn't quite dared to name. And then his thumb begins to move, just barely, a slow, thoughtful stroke across the side of your finger, like a word whispered too softly to hear, and you feel it in your chest. Dot, not lust, not longing. Dot, recognition. Dot, you stay like that, hand in hand, hearts unspoken, for a long while. His touch never grows bolder, never changes rhythm. It's not foreplay. It's not a signal. It's presence. A gesture that says, I'm still here. You're still welcome. You think of all the hands you've known, hands that reached too fast, that pulled too hard, that wanted before they understood. Dot, and then you think of these hands that tell you everything without asking for anything. Eventually, you speak. Dot, quietly. Dot, double quotes. Do you always talk this much? You teased out. His smile is slow, lazy, warm. Only when I have nothing to say, you laugh. It's a soft sound, but real, not the performative kind. The kind that escapes when you've forgotten how heavy your day was. When you've let your guard down long enough for your body to remember what lightness feels like. He leans back slightly, your hands still joined. I didn't want to ruin the quiet, he says after a moment. You didn't, you reply. You made space for it. He looks at you, then really looks. Not through the mirror, not over his shoulder, but right at you. And, in that look, that he understands what you meant, understands what you didn't say, understands. The way his hand spoke to you long before your fingers touched up later, when the city has turned entirely inward and even the breeze has softened. He lets go. Dot, not suddenly. Dot, not with distance. Dot, just slowly. Naturally, like a story reaching its last page. He turns the key, the engine hums, and you both begin to move again. But something has shifted now, not broken, not. Rush. Dot, open. Dot, and the memory of his hand steady, slow. Kind stays with you. Dot, not just on your skin. Dot, in your bones. Dot, it begins to feel like the night is bending around you, not in a way that warps time like fantasy, but in the subtler, deeper way a moment stretches when no one rushes it forward. There's no clock in your line of sight, no buzz from your phone, long since silenced. Just you, the rhythm of the road, and a stillness so whole it feels like the world was paused just for this drive. The car coasts along quieter streets now, ones without numbers or names, where the buildings are tucked close and every window is dark. A city still exists around you, but it no longer demands your attention. It has loosened its grip, peeled back its noise, and surrendered to the hush that arrives only when most people have turned in and forgotten. The stars are still awake. You pull his jacket tighter. Dot feels like the night is holding you, but softer, like maybe this hour was always meant to exist outside of time, like a footnote in the sky where people drift into one another's gravity. Not forever, but long enough. The heater hums quietly. You glance at him, his face calm, eyes. On the road, a quiet attentiveness that hasn't faded even now, after all these miles. There's a light in the dashboard that casts shadows across his cheekbone, and it strikes you just how present he's been this whole time, not as a driver, not even as a stranger, but as a presence, a shared atmosphere, someone who met you where you were without asking why. You don't want the night to end. You don't even want to think about the end. You just want this warmth, this motion, this subtle togetherness that needs no explaining. He turns down. A road you don't recognize, lined with old stone buildings and iron balconies. The kind of street that would be loud during the day, but now feels abandoned in a beautiful way. You pass a shuttered cafe, its chalkboard still outside, the words. Washed away by earlier rain. A cat sits in the middle of the street like it owns it, and neither of you disturbs it. He slows the car until it saunters away, unbothered. You think, not for the first time, how rare it is to be this comfortable with someone you don't really know. And then you realize something else. Stop. Maybe it's because you don't really know him. Because tonight, he doesn't carry any of the noise people often bring. He hasn't told you his job, his backstory. He hasn't tried to impress you or open up his wounds. He's just been with you, fully, quietly, constantly, and maybe that's why it feels like this night could go on forever, because it doesn't. Want anything? It just is. You rest your head against the window again, the glass cool against your skin, and close your eyes. You don't fall asleep. You float. Just behind your lids, the road pulses on, lit and unlit, familiar and foreign. His jacket still cradles your shoulders. His scent is part of the air, now warm, woody, grounding, somewhere in your chest. A truth whispers. You needed this, not romance. Not excitement. Not distraction. Just this. The long drift of a night that asks nothing of you but your presence. He speaks finally, and the sound of his voice is soft enough to feel like wind through a doorway. You okay? You open your eyes slowly. Yeah. Just ... I don't want it to be morning. He glances at you, a smile barely lifting the corner of his mouth. Then let's not let it. And somehow that feels entirely possible. As if by agreeing, you both slip further into this stretch of time where clocks lose their purpose and the moon grants quiet permission for softness to linger. He drives toward the river. Next out, you see it glinting ahead, black and silver, swollen from the earlier rain. The city skyline floats across it like a reflection in someone else's dream. He parks the car near a wooden boardwalk and cuts the engine. Everything goes still. You step out together. The air is cool, but not biting. It carries the scent of water, leaves, and something else like damp stone or the hush of old stories. You walk in step without needing to decide who leads. The boardwalk groans gently beneath your feet. The world around you is dark, but not empty. You reach the railing and lean into it. The water stretches before you, slow and deep and dark, moving. Without effort, he stands beside you, arms folded, his body angled just enough to be close without crowding. You breathe in deeply. I feel like I've fallen out of time, you say. He doesn't answer right away. Then maybe you have. You glance at him. He's watching the water. There's no smile on his face now, just stillness. As if he too knows this moment shouldn't be pinned down. The wind picks up slightly. Without a word, he pulls the jacket tighter around your shoulders, not possessively, just with care. His fingers linger for a heartbeat at your collarbone before releasing. You stand like that for what could be minutes or an hour. The moon skates across the sky and the stars blink. Like old secrets, somewhere far off, a train passes. Not close, not loud, just enough to remind you that somewhere life is still keeping time. But here, time has stopped obeying. Eventually, you sit on one of the benches. He joins you, not right beside you, but close enough that your legs nearly touch. The bench creaks. Gently, you look up at the sky and say, "You ever have a night like this before?" He considers it, not quite like this. You turn toward him, curious. Why not? He shrugs a little. I think most people are in a hurry to leave the moment. You nod slowly, and we're not. He looks at you, then long, clear, double quotes. No, we're not. You feel something tighten and then loosen in your chest. A feeling like belonging, not forever. Not even necessarily tomorrow, just now. A belonging that doesn't demand labels or promises. Just two people choosing not to look away. I don't know what this is, you whisper. He nods once. You don't have to. And that more than anything lets you stay. No defining. No naming. Just being. You talk for a while after that. Not about work, not about past heartbreaks, but about the sky and the way cities sound after midnight and the things you notice when you're not trying to fill silence. His voice is deeper when relaxed. Yours gets quieter, as if shaped by the water nearby. The space between you becomes more fluid, fingers brushing, shoulders resting close. You laugh once. Not loud, not performative. Just a soft, real laugh. He turns to you. What? You shake your head. I just feel more myself than I have in a long time. He doesn't say anything, just looks at you like that's the only answer he ever needed. You don't kiss again, not tonight. You don't need to. The intimacy of this night has already unfolded fully. It's in the way you sit without checking the time. The way you let silence speak entire paragraphs. The way his jacket still wraps you like a thought held gently. Eventually, you both stand. The sky is beginning to shift. Just a hint, just a whisper. The stars are starting to blink out. The night is folding itself back into morning, but you don't rush. You walk back slowly to the car. The city feels like it's waking up far away from you, not here. Not in this last stretch of velvet hush. When you climb back in, the car feels warmer than before. He turns the key. The engine hums. You exhale. You don't speak. Not out of distance, out of reverence. Because somehow, you both know this night is something you don't want to fold too fast. You want to carry it quietly, like a page you tuck into a book and reread later. As the car moves forward again. You whisper, "Thank you." He doesn't ask what for. He just says, "You're welcome." And the night, this endless, gentle night, finally begins to let go, but not all at once. Softly. With grace. Like a curtain being drawn over a still beating heart. It happens so quietly. You almost miss it, the way the sky softens, the way the dark turns into a shade that isn't quite blue, not quite gray. It's that tender, unnamed color that belongs only to mornings, still deciding whether to stay asleep. And inside it, inside this barely formed hush, you find yourself where you never expected to be wrapped in someone else's blanket, head sunk into someone else's pillow, your body curved instinctively toward warmth that is not your own but doesn't feel foreign. You don't remember falling asleep. You remember the drive, the river, the long, low silence between sentences. You remember his hands resting on the wheel like they had all the time in the world. You remember the quietness that grew so large it felt like a room the two of you were living in. And then you remember his voice, low and almost unsure. Do you want to come in? Not as an invitation with expectation, not a proposition, just a breath between one moment and the next. And you'd said, yes, not because you didn't have a choice, not because you wanted anything more than the moment already gave, just because you didn't want it to end. Not yet, so here you are, wrapped in the soft weight of his comforter, the scent of him still clinging faintly to the air clean, warm, maybe cedar again, or maybe just the scent of stillness. His pillow cradles the side of your face. It's slightly cooler than your cheek, and the texture reminds you of something hand-washed, used but cared for. There's no clutter, no loud colors, just neutral walls, a half-open window, and the faint sounds of a city too tired to be fully awake. And him. You hear his footsteps before you see him, quiet against the floor. Unrushed. He walks into the room, carrying 2 mugs, one in each hand, the steam curling upward in soft ribbons. He sees that you're awake just barely and offers a small, gentle smile. Didn't know if you wanted coffee or tea, he says, voice still soaked in sleep. You sit up slowly, the blanket slipping down your arms, the jacket you wore last. Night is folded neatly on a nearby chair. That, too, makes you pause. Makes you notice again the little ways he exists attentively, not loudly. Tea, you say softly, if you have it. He nods and sets the mug on the nightstand beside. You dot, and then he sits, not beside you. Not too far away. Just enough space for the quiet to still feel sacred. You wrap both hands around the mug. It's hot, and the heat anchors you. The first sip is gentle floral, earthy, chamomile maybe. You don't ask. You just let it move through you. He doesn't. Ask how you slept. He doesn't say anything that turns this moment into something defined. He just sits, quietly, watching the sky begin to paint light across the floorboards. The truth is, you've woken up in unfamiliar places before. You've slipped out of rooms still tangled in dreams, still smelling of skin and sleep and mistakes. You felt the shame of waking up without wanting to remember how you got there. But this is different. There's no shame here. No ache in your chest. No confusion. Only stillness. A morning that feels like it was waiting for you. You glance toward him, and he's watching the window, his profile kissed by the earliest threads of light. It makes you ache, gently. Not for him, not yet, but for the way this morning feels like it holds space for you. You take another sip of tea. And then you ask, do you ever bring people home? He blinks slowly, then turns his gaze toward you. He thinks before answering. No, he says, not defensively, not apologetically, just truthfully. You nod. I didn't think so. And he smiles, just a little. Not because he's proud of that. Not because it matters, but because he knows what you meant. And because you're both speaking a language now that doesn't require full sentences, you lean back against the headboard, pulling the blanket loosely over your knees. This moment, this one right here, is the one you didn't expect. Not the kiss, not the late drive, not even the hand on yours under the stars, but this, the quietness of morning in a stranger's room that doesn't feel strange, the permission to simply be. There are no plans, no decisions, only breath, only warmth, only the sun moving gently across the curtains. He gets up after a while, stretches, and offers you a question with his eyes. Want breakfast? You shake your head, not because you want to leave, just because you're not hungry. Or maybe you are, but not for food. Can I stay a little longer? You ask instead. His smile doesn't widen, but it deepens. Of course. And so you do. You stay. You finish your tea. You wrap the blanket tighter around your legs and lean into the stillness. He moves around the room, softly putting the mugs in the sink, opening the blinds a little more. But he never rushes you, never changes the air between you. When he returns, you pat the space beside you on the bed. He pauses, then nods. Then sits. His thigh touches yours. You don't move away. He doesn't move closer. You both just breathe and sink for a while. The world outside beginning its day in slow gradients of gold. You turn your head and say, almost surprised by your own voice, I feel like I've been here before. He looks at you gently. Maybe not here, he says, but somewhere like this. You nod. Somewhere I didn't know I needed. You don't talk after that. You just rest your head on his shoulder. And for a long time, that's all that happens. No kisses. No promises. Just skin against fabric. Just the rhythm of breathing. Just the feeling of having landed somewhere soft enough to hold you. And when you do finally rise, when the morning lifts fully into day and the outside world begins to knock you, fold the blanket carefully. You hand him the mug. You smile the kind of smile that says, thank you for being real. He walks you to the door. You don't ask for his number. You don't offer yours. You don't need to, because what happened between you was complete in itself. Circle closed. A night that didn't ask to last forever. Just long enough. And as you walk down the quiet street, the sun warming your cheeks, you carry the memory of his pillow against your skin, not just as softness, not just as sleep, but as the moment you realized it's possible to wake up and feel safe in a stranger's arms. Even if only once, even if only for a morning light that was kind enough to stay, there is a silence that follows closeness, not the awkward kind, not the kind that waits to be filled, but the kind that settles like dust after something gentle has happened. It's not quite absence, it's presence, softened. The warmth of a word unsaid because it already lives in the space between glances. This is the silence that lingers between you and him as you stand by his door. Shoes on, hair slightly tangled, the scent of his pillow still clinging to your skin. You're not sure what you expected the goodbye to feel like. If you'd been anyone else in another kind of night, maybe it would have been rushed. A kiss too long, a clumsy exchange of numbers. An awkward promise neither person intended to keep, but not here. Not with him. Not with this. You grip the edge of the jacket. Still on your shoulders, his jacket, the same one he gave you when the night was colder. Newer, still stretching forward instead of back. He hasn't asked for it. You're not sure if he will, and that somehow means more than if he had. He stands with one hand on the edge of the doorframe. not blocking your way, not inviting you to stay longer, just being there, holding the doorway, like he's holding the moment. You shift your weight from one foot to the other. Neither of you has spoken since you stepped out of the room, but everything has been said, not with voices. With everything else, the way his hand brushed your arm when you passed him in the hall, the way he brewed tea again this morning without asking, the way you folded the blanket, as if preserving something sacred. You look at him now, the light catching. His face at a perfect slant, too real, too human, too beautiful in a quiet way that will stay with you long after the sound of his voice has faded. You know what this is. You knew it last night, but somehow, now that you're here at the edge of it, standing in the open mouth of goodbye, it feels even more precious, even more full, because this wasn't a promise. It was a gift, and now it's time to carry it out into the day. You open your mouth, then close it. What would you even say? Thank you, that feels too small. I needed this. Too heavy, maybe. I don't want to leave. Too complicated. Instead, you smile. And that smile is the whole story. It says. I remember every breath of this night. It says. I'll carry this quiet with me. It says. We don't owe each other anything. And still we gave, and he sees it. You know he does. Because he mirrors it. His smile is slower, but it's there. Not sad, not elated. Just real. He lifts his hand slightly like a wave, but not quite. A farewell. A recognition. And then, before you turn to go, you do something small. You take off the jacket, fold it once, and hand it back. He doesn't protest. He doesn't insist you keep it. He just takes it gently, his fingers brushing yours one last time, the fabric carrying last night's softness between you. That single brush is the only touch in this goodbye. But you feel it everywhere. Then you step outside. The air is different than before, brighter, clear, tinged with morning, but not rushed. Your shoes click against the sidewalk, and each step is slow, purposeful. You don't look back. Not because you don't want to, but because some goodbyes are strongest when you let them close without fraying. You walk toward a city that has started waking up again. The traffic is louder, shutters opening, birds startled from trees. The world makes no space for the sacred. And yet you carry it. Every step forward is laced with memory of jazz on the radio, of his hands resting in silence, of the way the car seat shaped around you like it had been waiting. You think about how little you know about him, not his favorite. Season. Not his middle name. Not his heartbreaks or habits or the sound of his laughter in daylight. But you know something else. Something deeper. You know how he waits before moving. You know how he listens with his whole body. You know how he gives you warmth without asking for return. That's not trivia. That's character. And somehow it feels more important than everything else. You pass a bakery. The smell of fresh bread wafts out. It makes you pause. You lean into it, inhale, and smile to yourself. Because something about this ordinary scent, in this ordinary hour, feels like it belongs to the same world as last night. You could call someone, you could tell a friend where you were. You could frame the story in 100 different ways, romantic, impulsive, cinematic, but you won't. This story isn't for telling. Not yet. Not like that. This is one you hold close, the kind that doesn't survive being spoken. Too fast or too much. You turn a corner and find yourself near the same avenue where the night began. It looks different now, smaller, less curious. As if the mystery leaked out with the moon. You pause at a crossing light, and in that moment, you think of what you didn't say, How you didn't ask if he wanted to see you again. How you didn't write your number on his palm or send a text from his bed. How you didn't turn the quiet into a contract. You just let it be. Let the night mean what it did. Thought you wonder if he'll think of you tonight? Maybe, maybe not. But that's not the point. You're not interested in being unforgettable. You're interested in being real, and you were last night, not this morning, even now. In the hush between crosswalks and conversations, the light turns green. You walk on. A bird flies low overhead. You remember his voice steady, low, warm like dusk dot, and in your mind, he's still there, dot, hands on the wheel, eyes ahead, silence like music, and somewhere in the rhythm of the day now unfolding, you feel it. All again, not like a wound, not like a dream, but like a chord still gently humming beneath your skin. A night that asked for nothing. A man who said everything without needing to speak, dot, and a goodbye that held more grace in what wasn't said than in any words you might have offered. Some nights follow you, not like ghosts, but like gentle shadows trailing behind your days, brushing your memory every now and then, like wind over a page that never got turned. You go on, of course. The sun still rises, the dishes still need washing, the buses still run on their schedules. But every so often, you'll find yourself standing at a red light or brushing your teeth or tying your shoes, and something will stir in you. Quietly, persistently, like a soft voice reminding you, remember that night? And you do, dot, not just with your mind, but with your breath, your skin, your posture. You remember not because you're holding on too tightly, but because it changed something in you. Something you didn't know needed changing, dot. It wasn't the kiss, though, yes. You remember that, dot. It wasn't the tea, or the boardwalk by the river, or even the heat of his jacket still tucked into your arms, dot. It was him, or maybe not him. The man exactly, but the way he existed beside you. Without demand, dot, without a script, dot, without turning your presence into a puzzle. He had to solve. He met you in that moment the way strangers sometimes do when the world has soft them. When they're not rushing to sell a version of themselves. When they simply offer space and warmth. And the kind of stillness that says, you don't have to explain anything right now. You just get to be, dot. It happens so rarely, dot. And when it does, you remember, and you believe again, not in everyone, not blindly, but in the possibility of strangers, in their capacity for gentleness, in their ability to enter your orbit for just one night and leave you more whole, not less. You're walking home now from somewhere ordinary. A grocery run, a late errand. The world around you is forgettable. Streetlights flickering. Someone arguing over a Bluetooth headset. The scent of fried food curling from a nearby window. But tonight, for whatever reason, you feel that thread tug again. That long silk thread of memory pulling softly at your heart. Not painfully, not insistently. Just enough, dot. It starts with a song, a faint rhythm floating from someone. S-car window. You know, it, dot. It was playing the first time he reached for the radio that night. Dot, his fingers brushing the dial like it mattered. Like sound should match feeling. You pause mid-step. You're not crying. You're not aching. You're smiling. Actually, because you realize something, you still believe in people. Even after everything, even after the noise, the sharp edges, the empty conversations, even after being let down too often and trusted too quickly and gotten too little in return. You still believe because of one night, dot, one stranger, one slow unfolding of a few honest hours that asked for nothing and gave you everything you didn't know you needed. You walk on. Your hands are in your coat pockets. Not his coat, yours, but it still feels like a borrowed warmth. Like the memory left something stitched into the seams of everything you wear now. You think about how easy it could have been for that night to turn out differently. A wrong word, a rushed moment, an expectation that bloomed too fast, but none of that happened. Because he didn't want anything from you. And you didn't want to become anything for him. You just were not two people, too soft. Evenings crossing paths at the right kind of hour. You turn the corner, a bus roars past, you keep walking, and as you do, you wonder how many other strangers you'll meet in this life. How many people will appear suddenly and unknowingly offer something that stays with you forever. Maybe the world is made of that, moments that are barely moments, but change everything. Strangers who walk into your life like punctuation marks. Not permanent, not lingering, but essential. You remember the way he looked at you in the car. Not asking, not assuming, just seeing. You remember the way his hands moved without need. The way his silence was shaped like comfort. You remember that bench by the river. The way your thigh rested against his. The way neither of you needed more than that to feel full. And you realized this was more than a night. It was proof that even in a world as loud and weary as this one, someone can still reach across the quiet and say without speaking, I see you. You matter. You don't have to give me anything in return. That's why you still believe. Not because people are always good. Not because strangers are always kind, but because once in a while they are dot and once in a while is enough. You get home, you kick off your shoes. The light in your kitchen is too bright, so you leave it off. Instead, you sit near the window, the street lamp outside casting a faint amber glow onto your knees. You hold your mug. No tea inside, just water. But somehow, even that feels like part of it. You sip. And in the silence, you feel him again, not like a ghost. Not like someone missing, but like something still humming in your bones. Night that didn't try to take from you. A stranger who gave you yourself. You smile, and it's not for him, it's for you because you didn't close yourself afterward. You didn't build the wall back up. You didn't turn cautious or bitter or small. You walked back into the world, open. And even now, even here, you're still open, still willing to believe that someone might offer kindness without agenda, still willing to sit with a stranger for hours just to hear how their voice sounds against the dark, still willing to be touched gently by the shape of someone else's silence. That's not weakness, that's survival. That's grace. You lean your head against the cool glass of the window. Outside. The city is busy again. Cars, laughter, doors slamming. Someone yelling to a friend across the street, but inside, it's calm. You close your eyes and you remember everything that wasn't said. The goodbye that didn't require words. The moment you placed his jacket back in his hands. The smile that ended everything without ending anything. You'll never know where he is now. What he's doing, who he's with. It doesn't matter. Because what he gave, you wasn't tied to him. It was something more lasting. A night, a truth. A quiet kind of belief that people, even at their most fleeting, can be good, can be safe, can be kind without expecting to be remembered, but you remember anyway. Because nights like that are rare. And strangers like him, they don't ask to be believed in. They just remind you how. The light is off, but you're not asleep. Not yet. You lie there still, your body warm beneath a soft blanket, head nestled deep into your pillow. But this isn't your pillow. Not exactly. Not your bed. Either the shape of the room doesn't belong to your life. You're in his space, but only just. Not like someone who's moved in or even someone staying long. Just someone who drifted far enough into the quiet to be held for a while. And now the night is breathing gently around you. The ceiling above is faintly shadowed, glowing not from any lamp, but from the soft scatter of streetlight pressing through curtains not fully closed. That light casts patterns that feel almost cosmic, speckled, dim, wide, and you watch it the way people watch stars, not expecting answers, just being near them. His chest rises slowly beside you. You're tucked into the space where shoulder meets collarbone, where his heartbeat hums like a lullaby you don't want to interpret. He doesn't speak. He hasn't for a while. His hand rests on your side, steady and open, not asking, not holding, just there. His thumb moves slightly now and then, not as a sign, not as a request. Just because skin moves when it's real dot, your eyes trace the ceiling again, and it strikes you how quiet this moment is. Not just around you, but within you. There's no anxiety swimming beneath your ribs. No checklist running laps in your head. No aching loneliness curling around your thoughts. For once, you're just here, breathing, felt, safe, and somehow, that quiet is the loudest thing of all. You could say something. You could turn to him and ask what this means. You could reach for his face, kiss him again, ask if he wants to see you tomorrow. You could give the night a shape, define it, name it, try to box it into something less delicate, but you don't, because the beauty of this is its soft edges, the way nothing has been asked, the way everything has been given dot, so you just lie there, eyes open, watching the shadows play across the ceiling like constellations no one ever charted. You wonder briefly if this is how stars feel, watched but unnamed, close but unreachable, burning just to warm the air between people for a few quiet hours before fading again. You shift slightly, and he tightens his arm around you, not a lot, just enough to let you know he's still awake. You whisper, "You okay?" His breath catches, "Yeah, just dot dot thinking." About what? His voice is low, like the space between two notes in a song. How some moments feel like they've already happened, and others feel like they're still happening, even after they're over. You nod against his chest. I think this is both. He turns his head toward yours, just slightly. His lips brush your forehead, not a kiss, not quite. Just a presence, and you think this night doesn't have to mean more. It just has to be kept like a photograph you never take, but remember anyway. Not because it's framed, not because it's posted, but because it imprinted itself somewhere under your skin, beneath your ribs, between heartbeats. You close your eyes now, not because you want to fall asleep, but because this moment is clearer without light. And in that darkness, you remember everything again. The way he looked at you in the rear view mirror, the way he drove without asking where you were going next dot, the way he opened his door like he wasn't sure why, but knew it mattered, the way he didn't rush the silence, the way you didn't want to leave. And you think if there's a kind of magic left in the world, this is it dot, not fireworks, not vows dot, not perfect timing, but this dot, two people, one night, no promise of tomorrow dot, just presence, just warmth dot, just enough. Stars across the ceiling shift again, clouds passing, maybe, or your eyes adjusting. Either way, they move. And it feels like everything sacred about this moment is being quietly carried away by time. Not stolen, not ended, just gently ushered out, and you realize this won't last. Even now, even as his fingers trace gentle circles on your back, even as your body folds into his. You know, this is the end of something. Not in a tragic way. In the way mornings always arrive. In the way night never begs to stay. You open your eyes again. The shadows above have softened. They look more like ceiling now, less like stars. The air in the room is changing just slightly, like the world is remembering that it exists outside this bed. You breathe in deeply, and then you speak, not to hold on, but to mark it. This was enough, you say, and he replies without hesitation. Yeah, it really was. You don't say more. There's nothing left to explain, not your story, not his, not what comes next. Because some nights aren't about stories. Some nights are about pauses, breaths, stillness, about learning. For once, that you can let your guard down and nothing will break. That you can let someone close and not lose yourself. That you can be loved for a moment without needing to become permanent. And that's what this was. A love, brief as candlelight, but real, real in every glance. Every laugh, every inch of space shared without pressure, and when you finally close your eyes for good, your breath matching his, your heart easing into sleep, you think not with longing, not with regret, but with quiet wonder. Maybe strangers aren't always just passing through. Maybe sometimes they're the ones who leave the softest marks. You won't find him again. He was never meant to stay. But you'll remember how the night softened when he spoke. How the hum of tires on wet pavement felt like music. How you didn't have to explain anything. He just understood. No promises, no phone numbers. Just warmth offered freely in a moment that asked for nothing in return. And now, every time you see a taxi slide through the night, you'll think of that one ride, the way he held the silence like it was sacred, and how for one brief, beautiful night you found safety in a stranger's presence and peace in the places that disappear by morning.